Welcome back, America. We have a very dear friend of mine, Zuhdi Jasser, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He's former U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander. He's the founder. He has formed the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. He's running for Congress in Arizona. Boy, we can use you in Congress, man, I'll tell you that. Now, that said, you talk and have written about political Islam, CARE, Hamas, all these entities, these radical terrorist organizations. We saw the horrors that took place in Australia, the horrors that are taking place in Africa, the horrors that are taking place in the Middle East, October 7th, and the horrors that are taking place in the United States of America. I get the sense, Zuhdi Jasser, that what you refer to as political Islam, or what they refer to as jihadi Islamists, they're here in our country now, aren't they?
You cannot overstate the threat, Mark. And, we've been talking about it for decades, since 9/11, as a whack-a-mole program, and it's no longer a whack-a-mole. This is a sonic boom that we saw over the last week between all of the different threats. And Israel and the Jewish community have been at the head of that spear. Why? Because the radicals divide the world into the land of Islam and the land of war. The rest is war. So the West, be it Australia, Israel, Europe, or America, is to them the land of war. And they're so-called lone wolves. They're not lone. This is not even a pack of wolves. This is battalions of wolves that are in our country, in our borders, and this is a domestic and global battle. And as you so poignantly pointed out, we're 250 years into an experiment in American liberty that is the greatest democracy in the planet, that was founded on battling theocracy. And I, as a Muslim, my family came to this country because they could be more free here than in any so-called Muslim majority country that is all run by an establishment of theocrats, of petro-Islamists from Qatar to every other dictatorship in the Middle East. And they're radicalizing their community by having a supremacism that Islamic law should reign, and it's not about individual rights and freedom. And either we come to task with the battle before us. We've declared war on Nazism, communism, and we had the clarity and the moral courage, as you laid out, to fight those ideas. And when we finally had resolve, when we took an offense ideologically, we defeated communism without firing a bullet against them. Political Islam, Islamist theocracy, is at the same stage. And either we come to task with the battle or we're going to crumble. And the Jewish community has been at the head of that spear, and we need to support them, and we need to support our freedoms.
Very well said, Zuhdi Jasser. Let me ask you this. Am I right that the Democrat Party has essentially been devoured by this radical movement? And I'm not talking about the reform movement. I'm talking about the radical element. And then we have sort of these neo-fascists who are trying to either devour the Republican Party or cripple the Republican Party, who in many ways sound similar to these Marxist Islamists on the left.
As I testified to Congress repeatedly, I said, listen, if you think this is just a Muslim problem, you are going to find yourself surrounded by other enemies that the Islamists are going to bring to their side. So when Qatar fuels the radicalization of people across the country in funding liberal, leftist, progressive university teachings, and then all of a sudden you find this Marxist jihadist candidates in New York City like Mamdani and others, it's not a coincidence, because they demonize America. They use wokeism to infuse this cancerous ideology. And that wokeism infiltrates not only the left, but as you point out, it's infiltrating our own party and our own conservative movement. And we need to fight against it, because true liberty, true American ideology against theocracy cannot be relegated to identity politics. It's about meritocracy. And the left was radicalized and is radicalized. And all of a sudden, our kids and their friends are looking at America as the enemy, when in fact, my children are taught that America is a shining city on the hill and we need to defend it. And this is how we win wars, is by naming the enemy, which is Marxist jihadism, and not being weak and withering behind identity politics.
Very well said. When we return, look, I know what the Democrat leaders are like. You have Bernie Sanders, you have this mass slaughter in Australia, and he blames Netanyahu. That's how sick that guy is. I mean, utterly off the edge of the earth. But are you concerned that not enough Republican leaders are speaking out? A few of them are, but I really think they should be speaking out so loudly that it's deafening at this point. Because if the Republican Party doesn't stop this, or the conservative movement doesn't stop this, it's not going to be stopped. We'll be right back. Welcome back, America. Look, it's my argument that the Democrat Party has, if not completely, it's almost completely abandoned our founding principles, our constitutional system. It pushes this American Marxism, this economic socialism. It opens the border to allow people to come into the country, including many, many people who hate the country, who wish it bad will, and that would include terrorists. So if it's not the Republican Party, then what's left?
Yeah, you know, the reality is that we have to come back to our core values. And just like that patriotic Muslim in Australia that grabbed the rifle from the terrorist and took it away, we have to take away the ideas of anti-Semitism, radical Islam, and platform patriotic Muslims and patriotic folks on the left and right that believe in our founding values and believe in that 80% central part of America that want to keep our country with a sovereignty, with an ideology that we share, and then debate various policy issues. So the Muslim Brotherhood should be identified as a terror organization. We should have vetting mechanisms that both within and coming from outside the country, we don't allow Islamists to get into positions of influence. But even in a voice vote in a Republican-led committee, they wouldn't go on record as as being against the Brotherhood and identifying them as a terror organization. So we have a lot of work to do on moral clarity and courage, and that's one of the reasons I hope to be in Congress someday.
We have this odd mixture of the crazy left. I don't even like calling them the crazy right, because they've essentially they hang around the Republican Party, they're in the Republican Party, but they talk about destroying the Republican Party and creating a third party and so forth and so on. So we have these elements. I think, let's see if you agree with me, what they share is a bigotry and racism. What they share is an anti-Semitism and an anti-Christianity. And I think you'd make the point, and you're leading this effort, this reform effort for Muslims, so they're completely undermining that effort. And a lot of the people who get FaceTime and podcaster time are the most radical elements in all these political movements, and they seem to come together in their hate for the West. That seems to be the defining issue, no?
Absolutely. They don't want to deal with their own inadequacies, their own insecurities, so they use identity politics, and that's how DEI programs, that's how wokeism took hold into our souls in America, and we have to fight for it. We have to fight for what we believe in and begin to prosecute radical imams and their leadership as enemy combatants, begin to end the bigotry of low expectations, and stop giving Muslims just participation trophies, but actually recognizing those that have the courage to defend our values, to work against, pull that rifle away from the radical and the ideology of the Islamists and identify it for what it is, to target the Mamdanis of the world for their ideas and expose how un-American and what a threat the Marxist jihadist platform is. And lastly, to make assimilation non-negotiable. If people are going to come here and bring our families, we need to assimilate with that Judeo-Christian culture that you outlined at the beginning of the show and recognize that's the greatest country in the world. And we Muslims, a quarter of the world's population, have a lot of work to do to defeat theocracy. And the left, Chinese Communist Party, the Russian oligarchs and others are nowhere near. They don't light a candle to the success of the West. And we can't become a tool for the destruction of the West and folks that have a common enemy with the greatest, freest country in the world.
Well, Doctor, you're fantastic. As I said, you're the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. You believe in the Reformation for the Muslim faith, as other faiths have gone through the Reformation and the Enlightenment and so forth. And you're a leading voice out there. I wish you all the best in your race. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, Mark. And please come to Z4AZ, Z4AZ.com to help us change the narrative. God bless.
We'll be right back.